Hi, everyone. You're here at the Nourishing Community Through Action. This is a virtual conversation, and we're going to be digging into food systems, food access, and food security that's happening right here in the Triangle region. My name is Hannah Parker. I am the manager of volunteer and community engagement over here at United Way of the Greater Triangle. And our mission is to invest in community-driven solutions that advance racial and economic justice. And so the way that this panel kind of came to be is that this week we've been celebrating National Volunteer Week. So since last Friday, we've been partnering with a ton of different organizations and businesses and individuals, and we've been volunteering with these incredible nonprofits, many of who are on this panel right now. And so during the process of that, we've been packing meals, we've been delivering groceries, we've been planting vegetables. But what we realized is we wanted to dig in a lot deeper. So we wanted to dig into the complexities and the disparities in food systems, but more importantly, we really wanted to dig into the solutions, the collaboration, the innovation, and these community-driven solutions that are helping to make this a healthier community that is providing more accessible food to our participants here. And so the way that this is going to work is over the course of the next hour, we're going to be hearing from some really, really smart people whose faces you can see right now. So we have some really amazing panelists that are leaders from organizations all around the Triangle, and they have a wealth of knowledge, many experiences, various different backgrounds. And many of these folks have been really at the front lines of community organizing and policymaking and agriculture and development for a long time. So I'm just feeling really honored, really humbled to share this space with them. Thank you all so much for being here. We're really excited to have you. Before we get started, before we jump in, I have just a few quick housekeeping items. Number one, is our chat working?
Yeah.
It is. Awesome. Great. Please use the chat. We love the chat. If you have ideas, if you have thoughts, if you have any feedback, drop that in the chat. Let us know who you are. We'd love to hear from you. The second point is if you have a formulated question, that is going to go in the Q&A. So that is right there at the bottom of your screen. If you drop that in, we are going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of this session answering some of those Q&A questions. And the last point I'll make is we're probably going to talk a bit about statistics and data and numbers, but ultimately this is a conversation about people in our community. This is a conversation about mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and friends and children, and they are truly the ones who are at the center of this. Okay, so without further ado, I am really excited to introduce you all to our moderator, our fearless leader, Maggie Kane. Maggie is the founder and the executive director of A Place at the Table in Raleigh. And this is a pay-what-you-can restaurant that provides fresh, delicious meals to everyone, regardless of means. And Maggie, as you'll find out if you don't already know, is this incredibly vibrant human. And she's worked with this amazing team of people to build this restaurant in this space that is serving lots of people all the time. I mean, I think Maggie said 100,000 people have been served meals since the pandemic. They have 125 volunteers come through their doors each day. And recently they were recognized as the Good Neighbor of the Year by the Kelly Clarkson Show. Maggie hates this, but I'm going to go ahead and pass it to her and I'll get off screen. Maggie, we're really happy to be in this space with you. Thank you so much.
Hannah, thank you. Thanks for setting us up for success and diving all in and making all of our jobs easy. So you are the best. This has been an awesome opportunity, and I'm just so excited for y'all to hear from this incredible panelist. And so without further ado, let's all jump in. And yes, as Hannah said, please keep dropping yourself in the chat and your name in the chat. We want to know who's here. We want to know who you are too. You, as Hannah alluded to earlier, it takes a whole community to do this work. So we want to hear from you as well. And so without further ado, let's jump all in to this incredible panelist. Erin, I'm going to start with you. If you could introduce yourself, where you work, and maybe a little bit of background about how you got into this work.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Erin, and I'm Executive Director of PORCH-Chapel, Carborough, which is a food relief organization that's been around for almost 14 years now. I joined as the executive director in July, and so our focus is on mobilizing neighbors and building community in order to provide fresh, healthy food within Chapel Hill and Carrboro. I originally got into this work when I was at Durham Tech. I taught there for the last 15 years, and I started noticing that my students were disappearing, not because of lack of motivation or ability, but because of basic needs and challenges with food security. And so some students came to me and asked about starting a food pantry, and that was back in 2010, I think. And that led to getting into this work. I'd worked in nonprofits before, so it kind of was a natural link. And from there, it just built and ended up founding the North Carolina Community College Food Pantry Alliance and creating summits for both North Carolina and South Carolina to talk about food security, because it really is a point that can be a hub for folks to access other services, which I'll talk about later. But thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
That's awesome, Erin. Thanks for sharing all that. I just learned even more about you, and it's fascinating. So thank you so much for joining and sharing that. Okay, Susan, I'm going to pass it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for letting me be here. If you've been paying attention to the advertisement for this, I'm not the person who was supposed to be here. Had some conflicts come up this week, but I'm glad to be part of things. I'm Susan Meadow. I'm the Volunteer Services Director at Interfaith Food Shuttle. Happy National Volunteer Week to everyone. It's an exciting time. I've been at the Food Shuttle for about 5 years and really in work with people with a variety of vulnerabilities for almost 30 years. Hunger, housing, disabilities, isolated elderly folks. For me, this is really a journey and part of my faith commitment. And as I've gotten older, that has turned into really an awareness that I can't really be who I'm created to be without being immersed in this work with these lives and with these issues. So I'm excited to be here today and to be part of this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Susan, for sharing that. And thanks for just jumping all in and being flexible. And we are so glad you're here.
That's
So
what we do.
I know. Thanks for being here. Allanah, what about you?
Hey everybody, I am Allanah Hines. I work with Weaver Street Market. I am there. I call myself the Chief Culture, Engagement, and Impact Officer. Many other people recognize that as the DEI manager. So I work with the initiatives to lead our co-op forward. And then I'm also the chair of directors for our board. A little about Weaver Street, if you don't already know us, we are a local retail grocery cooperative. So cooperative allows us to do a whole lot of really fun, neat things, but we're built on the community. So that's really the only way that we even function. We talk to the people, we work with people, and we create ourselves as a gathering place by food because food brings people together. Within my role, I'll say, so Weaver Street Market created this role in DEI about 3 years ago with the increase in social justice during the pandemic. And so as a co-op, we increased the efforts that we were already doing with reaching out to the community, talking to our food partners, and digging a little deeper to start to reassess our programs on, are we actually combating the root causes? And so strengthening those partnerships, those relationships, which becomes kind of the intersection for me with personal and professional passions. Personally, I absolutely just love to do this. I love to just, to live in thriving communities and to know that I'm somehow bringing some sort of contribution to it. And then I just kind of have the fortune of also being able to get paid to do that. So, it's my everyday, all day type of thing. So I think I was just kind of born to do it, and it's fun, and I work with great people.
That's awesome. I can second, you work with great people. We are at a place that people are very lucky to be next door neighbors with Weaver Street. So we are frequent Weaver Street customers literally twice a day. So thank you so much for being here, and thanks for sharing that. We can hear the passion in your voice and can totally see why you do what you do. So okay, Harmony, tell us a little about yourself and how you got into this work, and just curious.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm so honored and humbled to be here. I feel like such a real grown-up when people ask me to be a part of these things. So it's just really awesome to be here. My name is Harmony Chavis. I'm the Director of Development at Table, and we deliver healthy food and nutrition education to over 1,000 kids every single week in Orange County. We just moved into our new space, so we're really excited about that and actually having the physical capacity to serve more kids. I got into this work really because, I was somebody that dealt with food insecurity growing up, and I think that it's really important for girls that look like me and live lives similar to mine to know that you can grow up to do great things and that you can make an impact in your community. And so for me, this is for the younger version of myself and those other Black and brown little girls that went through very similar experiences as mine, to show them, you can make a really big difference.
That is so good. That is so good. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being here and sharing your story a little bit and doing what you do. Y'all also have a great name, Table.
Thank you.
You were started first, so you all get the credit. Well, thank you for so much for the work you do. You are the rock stars, and so I am super pumped to dive into some questions. And so we're gonna start big. We're gonna start with the big question. What do you all consider to be the greatest barrier to food access in the Triangle? Erin, can I start with you again?
Yes. I think there's a lot of different answers I could provide, but one I want to highlight that I think is particularly important at this moment in the Triangle is around affordable housing, because food insecurity doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a lot of different causes and contributors. And I think this is a very important moment, both in our area in Chapel Hill and Carrboro, but largely in the Triangle. I was in Durham for the last 15 years, so I'm thinking specifically of a lot of the changes that have happened there recently. And a lot of folks are getting priced out of the area. And so we survey our participants every year, and in our fall survey, 68% cited increased rent as the main reason that they needed to collaborate with us for our services. So I think that is telling that drives the challenge. And so we collectively as a community figure out what we're doing around affordable housing and what we want our communities to look like. And I hear people talking about that, but I would like to see some increased movement in that regard. When I started when I was working at Durham Tech, and then even here, I originally, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, heard a lot of folks saying that they would need to move because that where we're serving, because they couldn't afford the rent here anymore. And it used to be they'd move to like Mebane or Graham. Now I'm hearing people moving to Person County, Granville County. And so what I want people to understand is that's a disruption to their lives, and it's the support networks that they have here. So connections to us as a food security organization and all the other things we connect them to, but also the schools and their friends networks, their support networks, their jobs, but also the community that they help to build. And so I think it's important for us to consider affordable housing and its connection to food insecurity.
That's so good. That's so good. And I'm sure most of us have seen the latest Supreme Court case about homelessness, and when you don't have options for housing, it makes those cases even more difficult. So thank you for sharing that. And so the rest of the panelists, I'm sure, I know, as Erin's alluded to, there are tons of different answers to this. There are tons of different things. It is okay to have the same answer, but also curious for you, Harmony, what would you say is the greatest barrier?
Yeah, I think that our families are just not being paid a livable wage. In a capitalistic society, we really tend to place value on certain jobs, and then certain jobs we don't place a lot of value on. And so we see our families in these quote unquote unskilled labor jobs, which are definitely not unskilled labor. They take a lot of determination and a lot of drive to do these jobs, but because they're not valued in our society for whatever reason, these people are just not getting paid. And our families are some of the hardest workers that I have ever seen in my entire life. I mean, these people go to work every single day, rain, sun, doesn't matter, sick, they make a way every single day. And so for me, it's just been really heartbreaking to see so many working families who are, putting in the work, putting in the time, not being able to take care of their families. We saw last year when the COVID allotments for SNAP were cut, that our average family saw a loss of about $293 in benefits. And with food being so high, I mean, it's just really inaccessible for a lot of people. And then we also saw families that pre-pandemic were able to take care of their families' needs on their wages. But since the pandemic, I mean, we're all experiencing just the exponential increase in prices everywhere, from gas to our food to clothing even. I went to Target the other day and my mouth was just agape to see how much it costs to just buy simple things like socks. So that has been a real big challenge for us. We had never in our 16-year history had a wait list, and then it grew at its largest to about 250 kids. And so, I think that sometimes we forget that these kids then grow up to be adults, and they are living in these same really broken systems that make it very hard to just exist and survive.
Mm. Thanks for sharing that. And it is so true. And I know all five of us see situations like this daily. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that realistic look at that. Okay, Susan, what about you?
Sure. One of the barriers that we see is sometimes just convincing people that hunger really is an issue. And I think sometimes here in the Triangle, we focus on RTP and all the universities and the level of education and income and that type of work that's being done. And most people just really don't believe that hunger is as big of an issue as it is, and that it's not just the population of unhoused people. It is the working families, folks that are, like Harmony said, trying to do their best to make ends meet, and it just doesn't work anymore. But that's why we have the programs that all of us have with getting food to kids in schools and to seniors living with low income, helping people learn how to grow their own food, because the problems are just all around us and in every community.
Hmm. You are spot on. Thanks for sharing that. That is also very, very real and a huge barrier. Thank you so much. Okay, what about you, Allanah?
Everybody has said a little piece of exactly what I wanted to say, and to build on that, to me, it's three kind of collective things. One, just as Susan was saying, the societal desire to put a face on hunger without people realizing it's the person in the conference room with you. It's the kid on your child's soccer team. It's the person next to you at work. It's literally that. And so, instead of this idea that it's the person you drive down the street and you see on the side of the highway, it's the person that you gave a ride to,
Right.
to the team building exercise. And so I think that really removing that and looking at statistics, 1 in 4, 1 in 3, 1 in 6, it's not 1 in 500. It's everybody that you encounter everywhere you go. And so when you go shopping, you're looking at people that are genuinely thinking, am I going to buy socks or am I going to buy food? And so, it's this idea that food looks a certain way and people look a certain way and people aren't eating healthy for a particular way. And then also the societal or the structural barriers around food. So, the long-standing discrimination, if you're not able to get a good car loan and you've got predatory lending, now you have even less money for food. I mean, it's for generations. So it's not just, I fell on hard times right now. My family history has been hard times and I'm trying to break myself out of it. So as much as society says that college is very important and going to a university, those bills are going up, but you've never been in a position to where you could really ever even pay for food. So looking at that, and there are so many policies even around food waste and what food is good and what food is bad. So, your food in the grocery store has to be shiny and pretty, but food that falls off the tree is not shiny and pretty, but just as nutritious as every other piece of food. So even the policy around what food people are able to eat and able to not eat, the federal systems, you can't eat hot food. It's wild. So, just kind of in this circle, speaking to people that completely understand that there's no reason. Sometimes some meal is better than no meal. So sometimes a Hot Pocket is better than not eating at all. But stop putting this face on, well, you look like you're hungry. No, I mean, everybody around us is facing something completely different. And maybe you're coming from, exactly as Harmony said, you're coming from a lineage of hunger. Or, exactly as Erin is saying, you've got people that just don't know. You have no idea. And then you create these systems, but when they're so tightly regulated around something that you absolutely need, it makes it really, really hard.
Ooh, conversation over, mic drop. So good. Yeah, I see a lot of claps in the chat. No, that's so good. And what everything all four of you said is spot on. And I think, like you said, the 40 participants on this call, we are in this work and we see this every day. And so it is, yes, just being more mindful of it's all around us. So thank you for pointing that out, Allanah. It's just so true. Another barrier to food access that we lightly touched on, but we're going to go a little deeper in is mobility. mobility. So thinking about mobility as a key barrier to food access. And each of these organizations, the 4 that we've heard from, and many of you on this call, we all, as you've heard, we all have robust, large, successful food distribution programs. I'm going to jump to you, Harmony and Erin, for you both to touch a little bit more and dive a little deeper. What have you found that has been, a success with these programs that you have? What also may need problem solving? What are some things that may need a little bit more, thoughts around and things to work on? So just curious to jump to you. Can I start with you, Harmony?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest triumphs is that we've been able to eliminate at least some of the stigma that the kids face when they're dealing with food insecurity. Prior to 2020, we were a backpack program. So we had volunteers that were going and dropping these bags of food off at the schools. So, you knew when someone was a table kid. And so we've been able to reduce at least a little bit of that stigma and sort of preserve their privacy a bit, and because we're not having to, take these large bags of food to schools for, itty bitty babies to be lugging back in their backpacks, we've been able to provide more fresh food and more perishable food as well, non-perishable foods. So that's been really incredible. We've increased the volume of our bags by 50% since the pandemic, which just wouldn't have been possible if, we were taking them to the schools for kids to then have to carry home. As far as the challenges, we keep talking about price and, how things have increased. It's hard for some of our drivers to deliver food because it costs money. Plain and simple, it costs money to fill up your car. Your time is also valuable. And so we've seen a little bit of a decrease in our driver volunteering. And we think that it's more than likely due to gas. Some of our routes can have up to 20 stops. Typically, we try and split those in half, but you could still, have 12 to 15 stops. So it takes a lot of gas. And it is a barrier. I'm sure that there are way more people that want to volunteer and want to engage in our work in that way, but just financially are not able. So we recently implemented a driver reimbursement program, which we are really excited about and really thankful that we were able to implement at this point. And so if you do 3 or more delivery shifts per month, you're eligible for reimbursement. So if there is anybody on the call that would like to participate in our volunteering and actually delivering the bags of food, if you're doing it more than 3 times a month, we'll be able to offset a little bit of that cost.
Fabulous. Love hearing that. Yeah, we can maybe send that out after as well, but that is with the contact information, all of that. That's awesome. I love hearing that. Sounds like some great successes as well. So thanks for sharing and the work you
Thank
do.
you.
Erin, I wonder what successes, if they're similar, if they're different, and maybe some challenges that you all have at Porch.
Sure. I think that a lot of the successes I've seen in food security work overall, but also with Porch in particular, is stems from the realization that our work is not transactional, it's relational. And so we need to go where people feel seen and heard and valued. And so we have 4 programs through Porch, and one of those is Food for Pantries. And so we support 13 pantries that are community embedded organizations. So those might be community resource centers, they might be churches, they might be other community-based organizations or social services. But people need a lot of different access points because they have a lot of different identities and needs. And so I think Porch realized early on that there's a lot of value in supporting those organizations in order to amplify our ability to support our community, our very local community. And then I think also we realized that it's not transactional and it's relational through the schools. So we also have Food for Schools program where we provide snacks to all 21 Chapel and Carrboro City schools. And those are students go to their school social worker. And so school social workers, initiates conversations with the kids if they're coming to them for food, but also allows the school social workers to start seeing patterns and who's coming more. And it's those relationships that can connect families and kids to other social services, other supports, other resources, and including our Food for Families program, which is our largest program. We serve 645 families. That's about 2,500 individuals in our community, including 1,400 kids. And so the reason that I think we've been successful with that program is the second point I want to make, which is making sure we're listening to those we serve, and always seeking feedback and then acting on that feedback. I think as community-based organizations, sometimes we lose that last step because of all the other hats and all the other things we're doing, but making sure we close that loop and act on that feedback. So for us around Food for Families, we've had lots of different models over the years, including during COVID, as everyone has scrambled. But we want to make sure that we're responsive and flexible. So we currently have a drive-through distribution model, and we heard from folks that some folks couldn't make it. So we found a way for people to be able to pick up for their neighbors or for extended family. We've also tailored bags to specific populations, so halal bags, and we buy Southeast Asian produce from for our Burmese immigrants. We have about 100 families, and we buy that through Transplanting Traditions Community Farms. We listen to them and what kind of produce they wanted and what kind of food they wanted. But I think requesting feedback as often as possible and acting on it is a real key and has been key to our success so far. I think in terms of challenges, I'm thinking more broadly here about food insecurity work overall. I think we can do more as organizations to elevate the voices and leadership of those we serve. We're currently undergoing a change to change our models because we're at capacity with our drive-through model. As you can imagine, 645 families that we serve in a parking lot. It's a lot of food. And if we want to bring on more food and serve folks, we need to be thinking about a new model. And through that, we're going to be able to engage our participants even more than we do now. So I look forward to bringing them on as volunteers, as employees, as committee members, as board members, because it's not just elevating their voices and amplifying it, but it's putting them in decision-making positions. And that's easier said than done, and that takes a long time to figure out how to do that and do that well. But I think that is a challenge that I'm excited about finding a solution for.
Another mic drop moment. Thank you. Yeah, what a good reminder for all of us. And I think that in moving to the next question, all of us have touched on this a little bit, but there is definitely, and we all know this, there's an intersectionality between hunger, food insecurity, with lots of different other social issues such as poverty in general, healthcare access, education, transportation, all of that. And so my next question is for you, Allanah. You all work with so many different organizations, including, I think, all of us on this call. You definitely work with us at A Place at a Table, and we're so grateful. So how is Weaver Street partnering with other Triangle nonprofits to address that intersectionality of food insecurity with all these other big issues? How are you partnering with other organizations to do that?
So essentially, I mean, as a co-op and building off of the community, we realize we can't do this by ourselves. There's no way that as a grocery store, we can conquer food as medicine. We can conquer everything that having a good, nutritious meal will actually achieve. So we divide and conquer. We find people that are like-minded people that are doing the hard work that we know also have the capacity to focus just on what they're doing. So if we do our hard work in working with local farmers and, doing what we have stated in our initiatives of, we want to help the underserved, and the underserved are, the ones going through these distribution lines, receiving this food, but the underserved are also the Black and brown farmers, the entrepreneurs that aren't being recognized, there are so many other ways that we can help really dig into the structure of it, that if we're able to source the food and to collaborate with these partners on how can we create the best access. So sometimes it is saying, hey, we have these systems over here that maybe y'all can borrow. We get food from this large distributor. Is it sharing an account with that distributor? Is it introducing you to these farmers? Is it, creating a space, essentially, whether it's a conceptual space where these conversations can be had, or a physical space to have these products and to share in the knowledge. I mean, we've been around 37 years as a stakeholder in the local food system. So it's our job. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to our community to collaborate in a way that's actually going to be helpful. So, it's while we have our drives and we have, our programs, we've really located the ones that are great success. Yeah. So we have our roundup programs when you go to our registers, and it's not just, oh my goodness, who is it going to? But we really take time to educate our staff on what is this organization and what are they doing? Who are they helping? And then we also have our coordinator that that actually connects with the people, that has the constant communication, so that, we aren't the ones that are doing all of the work. So when we do partner with, a doula, a local doula who's doing a community maternity drive, we can essentially just say, hey, everybody needs food. And when there is, when you have a lack of food access in an area, you also have a lack of maternal care in an area. We can, talk about book harvest, a connection we do with this. A lot of times, if you don't have food, you don't have books, and you don't have books with characters that look and, that you can actually relate to. So a lot of our work is, we know that we can get the local food, we can get the nutritious food, and then we find partners, whether they're financial partners or, health partners, mental health partners, things like that, that we know if you specialize in what you're doing and we specialize in what we're doing as a community, then we can build that nourishing environment. But if we try to do it all, we're going to be a jack of all trades and not really good at much of any of it.
Yes, that's so good. And I know, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And I know you, Erin, at Porch, I know y'all are very similar in this and do work and collaborate with a lot of different organizations. I don't know if you want to touch on this as well.
Sure. Yeah, we have had the good fortune of being around for a while, and so we've developed some fantastic community partnerships that directly benefit our participants. With Transplanting Traditions Community Farm, they're a local organization, nonprofit, that Burmese farmers, and then we purchase food from them for our participants, and then that money stays locally in our economy, creates jobs for folks. So that's a great reciprocal relationship there, that came out of listening to our participants, really. We also collaborate with things like diaper bank to be able to provide period products. So those collaborations and things like that are very key to us. It's also how we get our participants. We work very closely with the school system here, pre-K through 12, to make sure that we're getting connected to the people who need it most. But I think one of the things I'm very excited about once we have a space that our participants can come to is trying to think about how we ease the burden on them for transportation and time by co-locating services, so that when they're coming to us for food, they're also accessing all those other services. We had a lot of success with that in the last pantry I worked with. So how do we have people there who can help with connecting them to workforce development or ESL classes, or getting their kids signed up for pre-K, or doing benefit screening for SNAP and other things? So if you can co-locate those things and ease the burden of them having to go lots of places and talk to lots of different people, that's really important. So we got to work on those collaborations and those partnerships. And then we've also heard from our participants that they would love some deeper dives into topics. So there's lots of paths to home ownership through some community-based organizations here. So they don't have the time necessarily to go to each one and figure it out. But if we can bring them in collectively, they've said pretty clearly they would like some help figuring out those things. So I think there are amazing existing resources already in our community. So we don't have to, like Allanah said, we don't have to do that work ourselves.
Yeah.
We can stay in our lane and do our work, which is really about providing healthy food. But we can be invitational to our community and bring it in so that that adds value to our participants if they're already coming to a space.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious after hearing you say all that, there really is very much that clear intersectionality, and collaborating together is the only way that we are really going to truly be able to help folks. And so we're going to just quickly switch topics to you, Harmony. We're going to talk a little bit about sustainability. So as a triangle, I think we all know the triangle just continues to grow and grow and grow. How can we support environmental sustainability while also increasing food production and food distribution? I know y'all do a little bit of that work, and just curious to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, so one thing that Table has done has been really intentional about partnering with BIPOC and woman-owned farms. And so we spent 30% of our food budget, our fresh food budget, on local farms. And so that's been really incredible because of that sustainable income that they're getting from us every single month. And as we grow, their income is growing. We've actually seen these farms expand, which has been really exciting. And so in doing that, we're able to reduce our carbon footprint. We're also able to get our kids really, really fresh, sometimes organic food, basically the morning that it's picked. We have a local farmer that we work with, Jim Sanders, at Wildflower Lane, and all of his produce that he grows, he donates to Table. So it really is this full process of our volunteers going and picking the food, they bring it back to table, and then that day our kids are getting fresh food that was literally just picked from the ground earlier. And so that's been really great. We also see that we have local gardeners. They have excess in their gardens and they'll bring us what they have. And like, while you think 5 zucchinis isn't a lot, when you have several farmers bringing you that stuff, or local gardeners, as I call them, that adds up. And so, if you are looking for a more radical or innovative way to get involved, think about what you have at home. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to go to the grocery store and buy something expensive. It can be something that's grown in your backyard. And that's something that I've done. And it feels really good to be a part of this really full circle process of giving back to the community through food.
That's beautiful. And I'm sure those kids with that fresh produce, what's been their favorite?
So I think it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
We did hear that they don't want as many greens. So they are tired of the greens. It is green season right now. So we've been trying to help them with different recipes of like, how can you use kale? How can you use these different types of lettuce? But I know that we had watermelon radishes go out a few weeks ago. And I don't think anybody was a fan of that.
Looks like Maggie's screen is a little frozen, so I'll just hop in. Y'all, I'm going to skip a little bit just to stay on schedule. So our next question is really jumping off of the conversation of all the folks who are in this space who want to get involved. I know I've seen a lot of that in the chat. So this is a question for everyone, and I'll start with you, Susan. What are some of the most impactful or meaningful ways that community members and individuals can support your work with food access and food security right now? Like, what can community members pick up and do right this moment that can support these efforts that we've been talking about on this panel?
Well, of course, I'm going to say volunteer because I am the volunteer services director, but everybody has mentioned the important way that volunteers have been involved, whether it's helping grow and pick food and get it out to people, making those delivery routes. All of those things are really important. And it allows the organizations to really keep our costs down when the volunteers can get out and participate in that way. And it brings things to light, back to making people really aware of what's going on and who is actually hungry in our community. But along with volunteering, tell a friend, bring a friend, just really continue to get people involved in the cause.
That's awesome. Susan, what particular volunteer opportunities do you all have?
We got it all. We've got indoor opportunities that are working in our warehouses, really helping package food and get that delivered. In this area, delivery to kids to the schools, that doesn't stop for the summer with the year-round school, so that goes on. And then we do have our farm in Raleigh community gardens, and we're also building garden beds throughout our 7-county region. So I'm the one to contact. I can get you hooked up with any of those opportunities. And the outside ones, they can take a lot of effort, build up a little stamina so you're not running those muscles digging those beds. But it's a lot of fun. Our garden programs are really are thriving and are really exciting and popular with a lot of people, and go a long way to help families immediately and also the larger community.
That's awesome. That's fun. I've done several volunteer opportunities with Interfaith Food Shuttle, and it's just a blast. I've learned a lot from your awesome team. So highly recommend it to all of you. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, Allanah, I'm gonna jump to you. What are the most impactful, meaningful ways to support you and Weaver Street and your team and the great work that y'all do? What can folks do now?
So I'll say, when you're shopping in our stores, definitely Roundup. Roundup has changed from our community partners to our Food for All program, which is a program that Weaver Street Market has that benefits community members that are shopping at the co-op and receiving federal nutrition benefits. So these are the people that are shopping with SNAP, with EBT, things like that. We've created the program so that you can shop the entire store, with the exception of beer and alcohol, because SNAP doesn't allow that. So we essentially kind of combed through the federal system and looked at what is it missing. So it does allow you to get, as Erin said, hygiene products. It allows you to get paper towels. It allows you to get fresh, hot bar, salad bar. That we work so hard to make sure that this food is good. And an EBT system doesn't allow you to do that. So come into our stores, definitely round up, and pennies on the dollar, they amount to a lot. We recently just reached $2.5 million rounded up through our program. So that's awesome. Right? When you're not at Weaver Street Market, other things you can do, shop local. There's genuinely a difference. When our neighborhood is thriving, then we all thrive in so many different ways. Use your power to vote, definitely vote. I can't stress that enough. And then educate yourself. And when you educate yourself, move differently. So, when you do read Feeding America statistics, and you do see that 1 in 8 North Carolinians are facing hunger and 1 in 6 children are facing hunger, that means, in a class of 30, 5 of those kids don't know what they're going to eat when they get home. So, when you are learning these things, when you have these conversations, move differently. So speak to your friends and family and share this information. Don't keep it within yourself. And, if you have a question, what can I do? Think of all the small things. If you do have a community garden, then donate, hey, this is small, but somebody's eating off of your small donation. Pat yourself on the back for that.
Oh, that's so good. As I will go and grab something for lunch at Weaver Street today. Really, really excited about your new program. Thanks for sharing. Okay, Erin, what about you? What can we do to support Porch?
I think similarly, we would love to have more volunteers and more folks connect with us. So Porch is an organization that is powered by volunteers. And so we're very fortunate to have lots of opportunities, and we'll have even more opportunities when we move to a new model. But I think that we just had volunteers in earlier today. That's why some of this food is behind me right now, sorting these things. So I think sometimes people feel like they need to volunteer, they need to have this huge commitment. And while we welcome skilled volunteers, we also welcome one-time volunteers who just want to learn a little bit more and dip their toe in and become engaged and ask questions. And we love to have folks help us at our processing and sorting events, at our distribution events, and then skilled volunteers helping us with other things. So we will always, at our core, be engaged with volunteers. And I think the other piece to remember is that with Porch, we have our neighborhood coordinators. We're in over 120 neighborhoods in our area. That's what we are, as a Neighbors Helping Neighbors organization. So if you don't have a neighborhood coordinator, or someone doing the Porch monthly drive in your area, we'd love to connect with you and get a neighborhood drive going in your area.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm definitely gonna look where I live. We hosted a porch box here for a while. We need to get back at that here at A Place at the Table. So yeah, thanks for that. Definitely gonna sign up to volunteer. Okay, Harmony, what about you? How can we support?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that people often overlook is being a good ambassador for our organization. Tell your friends, tell your family, put it on social media, and just let people know about the work that we're doing. I think that it's so important. You never know, when you're speaking to other people about our organizations, who might be in the room, and who can help us to get to that next level. So I always say, be a good ambassador of our organizations. Tell your friends about it, because it is really impactful. And I think the other thing that we can do is, if you see a need, stand in the gap. You don't have to go through an organization in order to give back. I personally love Lasagna Love, because you're able to make lasagnas for people and take it to these families that are in need. Figure out ways to stand in the gap. If you know that somebody is struggling with food insecurity, drop off a casserole. If you know that people are having issues accessing things like hygiene products, drop those off to those people. It doesn't have to be formal, it can be super informal. But without community care, we're not going to get through this. I think it's so important that we put the emphasis on being there for one another. I know I take it back to the lessons of my grandma. When somebody passes away, you take them a casserole. Somebody doesn't have to die to take them a casserole. Are they
Yeah.
going through a hard time mentally or emotionally? Stand in the gap. And that's something that we can all start doing today, with or without money. That emotional support goes such a long way.
Mm, that's such a great way to end. And my apologies if my internet I'm seeing it slow down. I kind of kicked myself in the foot a little bit before everyone else joined, and I said I hate internet issues. It's the absolute worst, and now I'm having internet issues over here. So my apologies for that. But Harmony, that is a great way to end this conversation and move into Q&A. I do want to say one more time that that for all of these organizations, donations is necessary. So if anyone on this call is so inclined or knows folks that would be interested in these organizations, I know donations go a long way. They mentioned food donations, but also financial donations. So that is definitely a way that we can continue to lean into these 4 awesome rock stars and their team. And so we're gonna jump into some Q&A. Hannah, do you want me to just jump into the first one, or do you want me to pass it back to you?
I'll take some of these because I got a few separately. So
Go for it.
I did have a few questions from folks really around like state and federal policy. What can a regular person do to advocate for more food security in our community? Or are there certain policies that are being discussed right now that you think would really move the needle in food security and food access here in the community? And this is open for anyone. One to 2 people would love if you had an answer.
I'd be happy to take a shot at that. So one of our 4 programs is Food for Thought, and that's really our education and advocacy organization. So we work on educating our legislators about issues in the community, but so at a local level and at a state level, but there are also federal concerns. And so one of our representatives is currently on the Anti-Hunger Caucus, Representative Fushi. And so that's someone that is interested in hearing from constituents about challenges and ways to affect at the policy level. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that we saw what works during the pandemic, and we figured out how to lift a lot of folks out of challenges like food insecurity, and so out of poverty. And so the end of the child tax credit extension, the end of the SNAP benefits, the end of WIC extensions, the free lunches for all of those things are things we can advocate around. The collection of all those lifted millions of children out of food insecurity. So what can we do to voice our concern and try to push for those things to come back? And what can we do at the state level to advocate that then they make it easy for us to get those dollars to the organizations that can, and to get that information to organizations that can help folks directly.
It's amazing. Thank you, Erin. Another question I had, does anyone here have volunteer opportunities at your organizations that are either on the evening weekdays or on the weekends? You can just raise your hand or hop in. Awesome. Great.
Table does. We have our non-perishable shifts in the afternoons. And then depending on if we have like special shifts or not, like sometimes we have events where we need help. We might need help cleaning a window or doing just like very weird niche things. Sometimes those are on the weekends as well. And those are updated live on our site.
We also have sorting events on Sunday evenings once a month that are lots of fun, late afternoon and early evening, where all of those 120 neighborhoods bring in their food. So we sort it, inspect it, and pack it, and it's an active, fun time. You can see very tangible results on those Sundays. So we would welcome some volunteers to help with that.
A lot of food.
I know a place at the table has weekend shifts. So for our final Q&A, I'm going to do just a quick round robin with everyone before we close out. What is one thing that you want this group of folks to know about our community, whether that's its resources, its challenges, solutions, its people? Would love to hear just kind of final words of praise and encouragement about the Triangle. So how about, I'll start with Allanah.
So I would essentially say the global food system is very fragile. We all saw that during the pandemic. So while people were so worried that we didn't have chicken and eggs on the shelves, small places did. Weaver Street did have chicken. We did have eggs because we work with a lot of our local producers. So genuinely taking a step back and thinking about what is food. I work with undergrads, I work with grad students, I work with, all community members, and really assessing we have to do this in collaboration. It's not going to be one person. It's not going to happen extremely easily. We're undoing generations of hunger and food insecurity. So looking at the ways that you can donate, Donate doesn't mean, spending hours and hours, as was said here. It doesn't mean that, you're doing a lot. Small things matter so much. So you don't have to go through an organization. You can just walk in somewhere and say, hey, I got all this stuff from Sam's. My kids don't like these particular chips. Can I donate it to the school? There are so many small things, and there's so much food that we throw away every single day. Is it truly spoiled, or do we just not want it? Are we buying things because we don't know what else to do? So, there's such a gap between the people that do have and the people that genuinely don't. And our situations could change tomorrow. You never know what's going to happen. I'm sure so many people during the pandemic never thought that they would be in line for free food. They never thought that they would have to wonder how they were going to pay their bills. They never, ever thought that there would ever be a pandemic, because everything was fine up until everything shut down. So it's not even to say, oh my gosh, that could be me, but look around. We're humans at the very end of the day. It's done in collaboration, and look at the organizations that you're also associating yourself with. Weaver Street works with all of these organizations. All of these organizations also work with each other and with so many other people. So be a part of community, not just because that's who you are and that's how we live, but also, I'll speak for myself. It feels better in the end when you're like, I did what I could. And that's, maybe it is showing up and talking about how they're reducing SNAP benefits, but maybe it is just showing up and saying, hey, you know what? My family just had this really big cookout and I don't want to throw this food away. Everybody can make a difference.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. That was so well said. I am gonna take that and I'm gonna use that as kind of our final closeout comment. Thank you so much, Allanah. Thank you so much, Erin, Harmony, Susan, Maggie. This has been incredible. Before I'd say some final words, I did want to bring in our CEO and president. This is Eric Kane. And he's awesome and he really appreciates y'all. So I'm just gonna let him hop in here for a second, everybody.
Hey, everybody. First off, thanks to all of our panelists. Incredible conversation. These organizations, Weaver Street, Place of the Table, Porch, and Interfaith I loved what you said, Harmony, about community care. And I must admit that I do enjoy watermelon radishes. So you can send all those watermelon radishes my way. But on a serious note, this idea of community care and us really caring for each other, we all do that around a table and around food. It's how we build relationships, and we're just humbled to have you all here in this conversation. This United Way, our United Way, since the pandemic, has made direct contributions of over $25 million into the community. And just this year alone, we've put we've had 45,000 community service hours. So we're wanting to connect more. We're wanting to do this kind of community care and these community-driven solutions together. So we're proud to be a partner and humbled to have you all here. And thanks for this conversation about food justice. Back to Hannah.
Scoop. All right. Thank you all. Eric said it best. I'm going to do a quick screen share again. So we have some great resources, some contact information for folks who are interested in talking to our panelists here or getting more involved in any of these organizations. I'm also going to be following up with each of you with various links to incredible resources here in the community, as well as some of this contact information and a little feedback survey. So as you all continue to move throughout your lives, we hope you'll continue to be connected with these organizations, with United Way, and really ultimately with this community at large. As we all know, we all play a very, very important role in this, whether that's getting your hands dirty or just having these conversations behind the scenes. But I really appreciate each of you who took the time out of your lunch hour to be here with us. That's huge. That's a massive, makes a big difference. And a lot of love to all of the panelists that took some time to be here as well, who have so much wisdom and a wealth of knowledge, and your ability to share that freely is unbelievable. And you really are the folks who make this community a much better, stronger, more versatile place. So we appreciate each of you. Anybody who wants to stay on after this and chat with me or follow up, please do. I'm an open line of communication. But with that, I will say thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I will let you go on your merry ways. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah, for organizing us.
Of
Thank
course.
you. Thanks,
Oh,
everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all.
It's a ton of fun. Maggie, you're an amazing moderator. I love you.
I'm sorry about my internet, y'all. Woo! Of course, I really did kick myself in the foot when all of a sudden I didn't know it was me that was disappearing. I was like, oh man, then I got kicked out. So sorry.
How it goes. I know.
That's the way it goes. So yeah, thanks for jumping in, Hannah. You are wonderful.
Oh no, that's the least I can do.
And y'all are all fantastic speakers. It is so evident how passionate you are and how much you care, and it's just wonderful to hear. So thanks for, as Hannah said, thanks for sharing and being so vulnerable and
Yeah.
spending your time doing this.
Yeah, and if y'all, we will be putting this on our YouTube page, so I'll share that link with y'all. If you have folks, colleagues who wish they could make it here, we will make sure that they can make it from wherever they are.
I will say, I think this could have easily been like a 3-hour roundtable.
I know.
Like, like by the second question, I was like, oh yeah, no, that's like, I had to stop myself and just say, okay, so I'm not gonna clap every time somebody says something, and I'm not gonna just be like, yes, yep, that was hard in itself. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, can we do this every quarter? Can we do this every 6 months? Like, hey, what are you up to now? Who are you working with? Talking to people. Overall, the discussion was fantastic. Yeah.
Kind of see the progress of things, what are we hoping to do and what did we make happen? Yeah.
It's true. I mean, yeah, you're totally right. Like this yeah, the moment it started, I was like, an hour is never going to be enough. 3 hours wouldn't ever be enough. But no, it's encouraging these spaces to realize that more of these spaces need to happen, right? And like more accessible conversations for folks who are in and out of these spaces.
Yeah.
And I will say,
So go ahead, Allanah.
no, you guys. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I appreciate the opportunities for convening because they just aren't as frequent in certain areas. Like in Durham, there's a lot of convening just because of the size of the city for different food organizations. And now I'm feeling the opposite where I am just because it's a smaller community. So I appreciate that you pulled us all together. And Maggie, thank you for keeping the conversation going because I feel like it's a real rarity to be able to hear from each other and talk to each other collectively. So thank you.
I will also say, one of the conversations that I always have with people is, let's take the gloss off of food insecurity and hunger. Like, it's not this, pretty, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to Sam's and buy a couple boxes of, no, there's work that it takes to go into it. So even, I know Erin touched on, and it was so hard for me not to be like, yes, and this with Porch, but Erin touched on it, creating appropriate products for the recipients. And, there's an education in that. I know when I was younger and I would donate food, it was basically the food that was going bad in my pantry. But it's also, there's, with food insecurity and working to help people graduate from that system, there's also a lot of dignity and choice that has to go with it. So you don't want people to feel like you're essentially giving them your garbage to dig through. You want them to also feel like, I'm getting good food. And, it's a conversation that I know that we have of, just because you're food insecure doesn't mean you can't celebrate your birthday. And it doesn't mean that, you can't have those fun, your kids can't have fruit snacks, things like that. So a lot of times it's also, when you talk food donation, it's not this super shiny, what happens to $10,000? You eat that up really quickly, especially when you're paying local farmers, especially when you're providing, when nutrition, and sometimes it's like, oh, okay, thanks for the Fruit Loops. It's good. So, I mean, I appreciate the true depth of the conversation and not saying, oh, it's going to be super fun and come and you're going to get a medal. No, you're going to see some people come through this line, and these are real people. They're coming from work and they've got their business clothes on, and then you might see somebody in these lines. So I appreciate the honesty of it. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. I did get a quick question in the chat that I forgot to read. It was essentially, are there delivery programs from your organizations that are anonymous and remain anonymous? Erin and Susan, is that the case with your programs? If
I'm not sure I understand
me
who's
s-
anonymous.
it says, I know a few people in my community struggling that may be embarrassed, ashamed, and asking for help, but desperately need it. Is there a program that would drop things off anonymously?
Well, we would have to have their contact information to be
Right.
able to drop it off. So I'm not sure what that means about like what level of anonymous. I'm
Yeah,
not sure what they don't want shared there.
yeah.
Does it mean like quietly without drawing attention to it?
Perhaps. I'll
Yeah.
follow up with her and give her the resources if she needs
Yeah,
that.
and with the food shuttle, the food we're getting out as a food bank actually is through community agencies. So other than taking food into some low-income senior apartments, I mean, we don't know the name of the people that live there, but we know where they live and the residents that want the food and doesn't. We don't do any other type of, individual delivery like that.
Okay, I think I understand it further. So if someone were, do you take references from folks anonymously? Like if I said my friend Lily would like to be a part of your program, would you accept that, or do you need a specific client reference?
We could, I mean, we have a little bit of like food that we'll distribute on an emergency basis, along with then giving you a list of resources to go on an ongoing basis. And we don't really need a lot of information for that. That's very much on our system. You can pick it up for your neighbor or for yourself. And, but then we hope you'll get in a channel that will be more sustainable.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
NC Care 360, you can self-refer through NC Care 360 to a lot of organizations, and you can see which ones are closest to you and connect that way.
Okay, awesome. I hope that helps, Susan. Well, thank y'all so much. I'll be following up with each of you. Just appreciate you so greatly. And if you have any other thoughts, ideas, feedback, please let me know. But y'all are incredible. I really appreciate you.
You really are.
And thank you,
guys.
Joe, for
So
facilitating.
cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The tech on the back end. And Hannah, you are incredible.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great job,
You
Hannah.
Appreciate you.
are a fabulous facilitator and moderator.
Yeah.
So, thanks for making us all feel so welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Have
y'all.
good days.